RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Let me say that one more time. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me at your next event. I like to party with the people. Let me entertain you. Well, let's see. This week's shows, I'll be at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas on Friday night for the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam, my usual Friday night gig, the place to be in the whole wide world. Yeah, get to the Rab. Come on out and play with us. Yes, we are taking precautions during this quarantine COVID thing as we break out, wearing masks on the way in, use some hand sanitizer, wear the mask while you're walking around and you're dealing with people. But when you're sitting down, having your drinky drinks and eating your food, you can take the mask down. Yeah, full bar, kitchen's open, the pool tables. There's a pool tournament on Friday nights. So if you want to make some money on a Friday night while you're waiting to sing a song right next to me, you can come out to the Rab. You can do it all. You can have a good time at the Rab on Friday nights, 8 p.m. until 1 a.m. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, August 27th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Pence says Trump is the law and order choice. Republicans stepped up their warnings of lawlessness on the third night of their national convention on Wednesday. Vice President Mike Pence, the evening's headline speaker, said President Trump projected leadership abroad and law and order at home, accusing Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden of ignoring the, quote, violence and chaos engulfing cities across the country, end quote. During last week's Democratic convention, quote, you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America, end quote. Pence said as unrest continued for a fourth night in Kenosha, Wisconsin, following the shooting of an unarmed black man, Jacob Blake, by a white police officer. The speakers framed the unrest as looting and violence without focusing on protesters' calls for racial justice. Representative Elise Stefanik, Republican New York, accused Biden, a moderate Democrat, of being a supporter of, quote, far-left social policies, end quote. This is according to the New York Times. Number 2, Illinois teen charged with killing 2 at Wisconsin protest. Authorities arrested a white Illinois teen identified as Kyle Rittenhouse on Wednesday and charged him with first-degree intentional homicide after he allegedly fatally shot 2 people and wounded another during a protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, over the police shooting of an unarmed black man, Jacob Blake, who was left partially paralyzed. Rittenhouse, 17, apparently considered himself a militia member protecting lives and property during the protest, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reported, citing videos, interviews, and social media posts. Police identified the officer who shot Blake as Rustin Shesky and said that there was a knife in Blake's car, but no gun. This is according to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Number 3, extremely dangerous Hurricane Laura hits Louisiana. Hurricane Laura made landfall in southwestern Louisiana on Thursday as an, quote, extremely dangerous, end quote, Category 4 storm with top sustained winds near 150 miles per hour. Forecasters at the National Hurricane Center warned it could hit some coastal areas with, quote, unsurvivable, end quote, storm surge of 20 feet around the Louisiana-Texas state line. The storm gained strength over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico as it approached land, and its rain started flooding some parts of the Louisiana coast on Wednesday, afternoon when the storm was still hundreds of miles offshore. More than 585,000 people were under a mandatory evacuation order, the largest evacuation of the COVID-19 area. Earlier this week, the storm killed 20 people in Haiti and 3 in the Dominican Republic. This is according to the Associated Press and NPR. Number 4, Trump administration reportedly pressured CDC to change COVID-19 testing guidelines. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released a controversial new guidelines on COVID-19 testing after being pressured to do so by top Trump administration officials, the New York Times reported Wednesday, citing 2 federal health officials. The CDC this week said that those exposed to COVID-19 but who don't have symptoms do not, quote, necessarily need a test, end quote, unless a healthcare provider or official recommends it, or they're at risk. The Times reported this change, quote, came as a directive, end quote, from, quote, higher ups at the White House and the Department of Health and Human Services, end quote. And CNN quoted an official as saying the new guidelines are, quote, coming from the top down, end quote. Experts warned that not testing asymptomatic people would make contact tracing impossible. New York and California don't plan to follow the new guidelines. This is according to the New York Times and CNN. Number 5, only Native American on federal death row executed. Federal authorities on Wednesday executed Lesmond Mitchell, the only Native American on federal death row for the murders of 63-year-old Alice Slim and her 9-year-old granddaughter, Tiffany Lee. Mitchell and his accomplice stabbed Slim 33 times after she gave them a ride in October 2001, and they later slit the child's throat. Mitchell confessed and led the police to the bodies. The lethal injection was the 4th federal execution this summer after a 17-year freeze. Mitchell's case marked the only time in modern history the federal government has pushed the death penalty over the objection of a tribe for a crime on tribal land. The Navajo Nation objected to Mitchell's execution, but Tiffany Lee's father said in a statement read by his lawyer that Mitchell's execution had provided justice for his daughter after a 19-year wait. This is according to CBS News. Number 6, report. Coronavirus cases among children rose by 21% this month. COVID-19 cases among children rose by 21% between August 6th and August 20th, according to an updated joint report from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association. More than 70,000 new child coronavirus cases were reported across the country over the period, bringing the total number of children who have been infected with the coronavirus during the pandemic to more than 440,000. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention previously said the number of COVID-19 cases in children was, quote, steadily increasing, end quote, from March through July, and that children, quote, likely have the same or higher viral loads in their nasopharynx compared with adults, end quote, and, quote, can spread the virus effectively, end quote. Quote, severe illness, end quote, from COVID-19 remains, quote, rare, end quote, among children, the report said. This is according to CNN. Number 7, Moderna says its COVID-19 vaccine shows promise among elderly. Moderna said Wednesday that its potential COVID-19 vaccine induced promising immune responses in older adults during an early-stage clinical trial. The biotech firm tested its experimental vaccine on 10 adults between 56 and 70, and 10 aged 71 and older. The older patients produced neutralizing antibodies believed necessary to build immunity at similar rates as younger patients. The news offered hope for protecting older people who have been identified as vulnerable to severe complications from COVID-19. Moderna is among the leading firms racing to develop a coronavirus vaccine. Its candidate, mRNA-1273, is undergoing late-stage human trials to judge its safety and effectiveness. This is according to Reuters. Number 8, New Zealand court sentences Christchurch mosque killer to life in prison. A New Zealand court on Thursday sentenced far-right terrorist Brenton Tarrant to life in prison for killing 51 people at 2 Christchurch mosques last year. Tarrant, an Australian, rigged his triggers to make his guns fire faster to increase the death count, and he used a strobe light to disorient worshippers in the mosques. After the attacks, he told police he wished he had killed more. He was the first person ever to be sentenced to life behind bars with no chance of release, New Zealand's most severe punishment. Quote, if he still has any human feeling, he will die in guilt and remorse, end quote, said Al Noor Mosque Imam Gamal Fauda. Tarrant killed 44 people at Al Noor. This is according to the New York Times. Number 9, TikTok CEO steps down, citing new political environment. TikTok CEO Kevin Mayer announced early Thursday that he had resigned just 3 months after taking the job because the, quote, political environment has sharply changed, end quote. President Trump says the popular short video app owned by China's ByteDance is a security risk, and he has ordered a ban on the social media company unless its U.S. operations are sold to an American company. ByteDance is suing the Trump administration over the executive order, but also talking to Microsoft about a potential sale. Quote, I have done significant reflection on what the corporate structure changes will require and what it means for the global role I signed up for, end quote, Mayer said. TikTok will be led on an interim basis by U.S. General Manager Vanessa Pappas. This is according to Reuters and the Associated Press. Number 10, Bucks boycott over police shooting spreads through sports world. The Milwaukee Bucks boycotted Game 5 of their playoff series against the Orlando Magic on Wednesday to protest the shooting of Jacob Blake, an unarmed black man, by police in Kenosha, Washington. Quote, we're tired of the killings and the injustice, end quote. Bucks guard George Hill said. The Magic quickly joined in the boycott, as did the teams set to play the other 2 playoff games scheduled for Wednesday. Los Angeles Lakers and LA Clippers players reportedly called for canceling the remainder of the NBA season, throwing the rest of the playoffs in doubt. Several Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer teams, including the Milwaukee Brewers, later announced they would also not be playing Wednesday night, as did the entire slate of scheduled WNBA games. This is according to CNN and CBS Sports. That's 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, August 27th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. I'm trying to get smarter. I'm trying to keep up on current events, and hopefully you taking this journey with me, you can keep up with current events as well. Also, hey, the newest thing that I've been doing is streaming games. I'll probably stream some games today. I don't even know what game to stream. Find me on Facebook.com/KeysDAN Gaming or Twitch.tv/KeysDAN. And let me know, what kind of games do you like to watch? And what would you like to watch me fail horribly, miserably, probably at? Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag WhatMakesYouFamous. That's it for me. KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.